I inherited a prison the way some people inherit a curse, quietly, in a sealed envelope with my grandfather's name pressed into red wax. The deed was brittle, the ink still smelling of smoke, as if the paper itself remembered the fire he set and the screams it failed to swallow. They said Grandad tried to burn Blackfog Penitentiary to the ground the night the power died and the warden vanished between cells that were locked and occupied. I told myself it was folklore. Then I touched the "If you want the truth I found in there, and why I can't sleep, subscribe now. I'll take you inside Blackfog, step by step." I counted 12 keys on the ring my grandfather left me, each tagged with a metal disc: A block, B block, infirmary, chapel, boiler. They jingled like bones when I lifted them, refusing to keep the warmth of my palm. The realtor waited outside the gate, never crossing the threshold. She smiled the fixed smile of someone trying not to inhale a smell. "Quick walk through?" she asked. I nodded and went in alone. The entry corridor stretched like a throat. Paint hung in curls, and soot spidered across the ceiling in a constellation of failed flames. My steps echoed ahead of me, and then, behind me. I stopped. The echo stopped late, like someone had taken an extra step to catch up. Blackfog was decommissioned in '79, I told myself out loud, because sometimes a voice is a candle. Anyone left here is a rumor. On the wall by the intake desk, a charred notice board held 3 things spared: a visitor log, a guard lineup photo, and a typed memo stamped denied. The visitor log had my family's last name scrawled on the final line in shaky blue: Hargrove, emergency access granted by Warden Collier. The date matched the night of the fire. I lifted the memo. The paper crackled and left gray kisses on my fingers. Request to transfer inmate number 313 to State Hospital. Denied. Reason: uncooperative delusions. Claims the building speaks. A coffee ring drowned the signature. Something rattled, faint and metallic, like a spoon against a rail. I moved toward A block. The first key slid into the lock too easily, as if the tumblers had been waiting for the taste. When the door swung open, a cold front met me. The rows of cells were dark mouths, barred teeth smiling without humor. I held my phone's light up to the first cell. On the wall, scraped through soot, a message waited at eye level. "Let it finish." Let what finish? I asked the empty air. The answer didn't come in words. It came in a smell: wet extinguished fire, copper, and the afterbreath of lightning. Down the tier, a door I hadn't opened clicked once. Then twice, like a heartbeat learning its pace. Keys clinked on my ring without my hand moving at all. I turned, and saw a 4th saved item on the intake board that hadn't been there a moment earlier: a Polaroid curled at the edges, glossy as a fresh wound. In it, my grandfather in a fireman's coat, standing in this corridor, eyes wild, mouth open mid-shout. On the backside, in a handwriting I knew from family Christmas cards, a sentence in pencil: "If you're reading this, you are part of the sentence." At the end of the tier, the last lock lifted itself with a soft, grateful click, like a throat clearing before it speaks. I followed the metal breathing to the end of A block, where the corridor bent into isolation cells. The door marked observation had wired glass clouded by soot. My key slid, the latch answered with tired relief. Inside, a bolted chair, a desk, a dead reel-to-reel half buried in ash. My flashlight swept the desk blotter. Under the film of soot sat index cards, numbered and tagged. The top card read inmate number 313, statements. In the corner someone had carved "Do not feed IT" so deep the letters cut the wood. I pressed the tape's power out of habit. The reels didn't turn, but the speaker crackled and whispered, "It doesn't want to be burned. It wants to burn." Not my grandfather. Younger. Trying to sound calm and failing. I thumbed through the stack. Each card carried a single sentence. "It counts us. It knocks when it likes the story. The fire was its inhale." On the back of one, a crude map, rectangle for the prison, dots for vents, a circle around the boiler room. A smudged note beside it, bring a name. Saying it aloud made the room colder. The cards rasped against one another, papery scales. In the hall, a faint pattern tapped, 3, pause, 4, pause, 1. I remembered the memo, uncooperative delusions, and wanted to laugh and run. Why had my family come the night of the fire? The visitor log said Hargrove, emergency access. The Polaroid of my grandfather warmed in my pocket like an extra pulse. The knocks traveled along the tier outside. I stepped into the hall. My light moved past cells that looked empty until you took your light off them. Handprint ash. Tally scratches stopping at 12, beginning again. At the far end a shadow withdrew around the turn, always just out of detail. I followed. A soot pin facility map hung at the junction. I traced the route to the boiler room under C block. Bring a name. Names bait doors and debts. My grandfather's name sat in my mouth like an old coin. I went down the stairs. Air cooled, then dampened. Passing the infirmary landing, a wash of emergency green leaked under its door, then died. My phone showed no signal, but the clock repeated seconds, stuttered them. At the base level a sign tilted on one screw, warning, negative pressure area, keep door closed. It had been propped with a burned boot. Beyond it, the boiler room waited, ribbed by pipes that sweated. I should have left. Instead, I tested a name. Collier, I said, the missing warden. The bulkhead lights ticked once and held their breath. From the dark between the tanks, the spoon-on-rail rhythm answered, clearer now, as if pleased. 3, 4, 1. Childish. Happy. Granddad. The word left white fog. Paper slid in the observation room above, cards shifting, and a soft, human exhale warmed my right ear. I swept the light. Corrugated metal at face height showed fresh scratches, wet around the cuts. The sentence trembled there. Bring a name. Bring your own. Behind me, something chose a key and turned it in a lock I hadn't noticed. Not fast. Enjoying each click. The negative pressure door began to ease shut on its boot, inch by inch, until the rubber slipped free and the room took a long, hungry breath, and the lights learned to flicker just for me. The door sighed shut and the air pulled at my clothes. Pipes hummed a low vowel. The tapping faded, replaced by a new sound, counting, whispering numbers against the teeth of the grate. I aimed the light down and found a drain, its rim black with soot, its center clean as a coin from too much touch. 1, the grate exhaled, so quietly I could have called it imagination. 2, 3. I crouched and heard breath echoing up the pipe, from 2 floors below. I brought a name, I said, before fear could edit it. Hargrove. Saying my family out loud felt like exposure. The count paused, then resumed from the beginning, faster now, excited by the new number it intended to reach. I stood and backed away from the drain. The boiler room's catwalks led to maintenance corridors on either side, both stenciled, Feed and FLUE. Feed pointed toward the infirmary. I chose it. The infirmary door resisted like sleep. Inside, cabinets hung open, their glass cloudy with heat ghosts. I found a metal file case jammed under a toppled crash cart. When I dragged it loose, a smear of soot revealed a label ghost, Psych, Collier only. The lock had melted decades ago. I pried it with a tongue depressor and opened on folders bloated with damp. Inmate number 313 lay on top. The admission photo showed a man with a sorry smile. The name line was redacted twice, heavy bars. Notes beneath, auditory phenomena localized to vents, insists, the building wants a story finished, unresponsive to tranquilizers during surge events, requests visit with grandchild. I looked again at the date. The request had been filed the week I was born. A cartwheel chirped in the hall. I flattened the folder and lifted another. Transfer request, denied. Reason, no evidence of organic disease, symptoms appear situational to black fog. Margins carried 3 sets of handwriting arguing. At the bottom, a clipped signature, Warden A. Collier. The counting swelled through the vents, pouring into the infirmary. 1, 2, 3, the numbers were careful, as if each were a bead pressed onto a wire. On a high shelf, wrapped in peeling plastic, I found a cassette recorder with a sticker, Granddad. I hit play. Tape hiss. Then my grandfather's voice, tired. If you get this, don't feed it a stranger's name. It has to be yours. That's how you call it to the right mouth. That's how you keep it from, static clipped him. Thought the fire would starve it. But it only made more of it to breathe. He coughed. Kid, if you're there, bring a coin. It counts. You'll see. The gurney moved a quarter inch. I jerked my light up and found only straps and a stain shaped like patience. Granddad? I asked the empty room. In reply, the overhead speakers crackled to life with no power. A woman's voice, gentle, unmistakable, filled the ward, Sweetheart, don't stay. Not again. My mother had been dead 5 years. Mom. The word tasted like childhood and salt. A second voice laid over hers, hoarse, almost pleased. It used my mother's exact rhythm. Bring your name, it said. Bring your mouth. A second gurney rolled on its own and kissed the back of my knees. Straps coiled. The counting snapped to 0, the way a game ends. From the hall, a shadow pushed the infirmary door until the latch engaged, and the room began, politely, to lock me in. The infirmary door clicked once, twice, 3 times, deliberate. Straps brushed my calves. I remembered the tape, bring a coin. I dug into my pocket and found the only one I had, a tarnished quarter I keep for parking meters. My grandfather used to flip quarters and say, heads tells the truth. Okay, I told the room. You want to count? Count this. I slid the coin across the floor. It rang against tile, spun, wobbled, and fell. The counting in the vents restarted from 1, matching the spin's slow fade, as if the building timed itself to the quarter's dying wobble. The door latch relaxed. I pushed it open and stepped into the hall. The map said the chapel stood above the boilers. If this place wanted names and mouths, that's where names are shaped. I climbed. The stairwell was a chimney of cold breaths. I heard footfalls match mine from a step behind and to the left. The chapel door bore blistered varnish and a brass plate, Faith Services. My key ring found the right tooth on the first try. Inside, soot arched the ceiling. Broken pews slouched toward a black altar. A scripture board still held letters, Psalm 13. At the front rail, a lectern waited with a leather-bound register. I opened to a page singed at the edges. Names flowed down the lines in different hands, prisoners, guards, volunteers, a chaplain. Near the bottom, just above a smear, 2 more, Warden A. Collier. Hargrove. I touched the ink. The register bled through to the wood beneath, names had sunk. I turned the page and found a torn note tucked inside, it learned the hymns. Don't sing back. Air sifted through the organ pipes, and one key sighed. A low C held, then wavered, gathering faint harmonics that sounded almost like voices. My mother's voice braided among them, asking softly, do you remember the bedtime prayer? I closed the register and put both hands on the lectern. Who is number 313? I asked the knave. The organ answered with feedback that shaped into syllables I knew too well, my family name, spoken with a hint of a smile. Hargrove. The sound pleased the room. Another key depressed by itself, then another, building a chord around the name. The register pages flipped in a forced breeze, then stopped at an older entry. The ink there was gray with age, but the hand was my grandfather's. Not a name. A confession, I burned the wrong thing. Something climbed the aisle without moving, a pressure coming forward seat by seat. I stepped back until my calves pressed the front pew. The organ cord swelled and began to count between notes, 1, 2, 3, as if the hymn itself had ribs. Behind the altar, a small door I hadn't noticed edged open. Beyond it, a stair down into dark. The counting fell to a whisper that slid along the wall. If you want a name, I told the door, you already have mine. It answered by closing the chapel's main doors and snuffing what little light remained. I felt the quarter in my pocket turn suddenly cold, as if someone else had just flipped it and it had landed, decisively, on heads. The quarter against my thigh felt like a winter tooth. When I palmed it, the cold climbed my wrist and settled under my tongue, a taste of old copper and smoke, as if the coin had been minted in the chapel's ash. The organ breathed once, and the pipes held their note like a throat clearing before confession. I'm not singing, I told the pews. You'll have to make do with prose. The small door behind the altar admitted a draft that smelled like damp wood and linen. I slid through and pulled it until it nearly latched. The stair beyond was tight and steep, shockingly clean where everything else in black fog bore soot. I trailed fingers along the wall and felt shallow grooves, tallies etched one notch at a time, 100 thin ribs of patience. At the bottom, the stair opened into a vestry that had survived by hiding. Vestments hung in plastic like shrouds. A porcelain sink cupped a crust of ash the shape of a hand. Against one wall, a metal cabinet waited with a key already in it. The tag read Chaplain, Archives. I turned the key. The cabinet door exhaled paper dust. Inside, 3 ledgers and a shoe box of cassette tapes labeled with Sundays, Easter, Pentecost, Advent. A 4th tape had no label, just a hand-drawn circle with 13 tick marks around it. I knew the number before I counted. I fed the tape into a portable recorder on the shelf and pressed play. Organ hiss, then the chaplain's voice, steady, kind, reading Psalm 13, How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? A beat later, the chapel answered. Not the congregation, the building. The pipes breathed the response measure, and underneath, like someone coughed into a vent, a second voice matched the chaplain word for word. It wasn't mimicry. It was memory, thick, delighted. When the psalm ended, the chaplain whispered off mic, if you can hear me, please stop. The tape clicked. A second track began. My grandfather's voice filled the vestry, brittle and young at once. Father Gray, if this plays later, if anyone is left, tell my grandson I tried to drown it in music before I tried fire. It breathes through the hymns. It counts with them. If he ever comes, if he was the one number 313 meant. Static gnawed him away. The recorder popped and died, as if offended by the name. I stood very still. Me? My own whisper sounded borrowed. Me who? The organ upstairs found a low chord, the kind that sits under a prayer. It stretched until the pipes trembled. From the stair I'd just descended came a soft patter, like fingers drumming the banister, keeping time. 3, 4, 1. I opened the second ledger. Pastoral visits, restricted. Names in careful columns. Inmate number 313 appeared again and again. On the right, in red pencil, requested, grandchild. The dates nodded around the first month of my life, as if someone had shook the calendar until time pooled. I flipped to a dog-eared page. A note had been clipped there with a paperclip rusted in a brown halo, Hargrove brought accelerant for maintenance, denied. Chaplain present. 313 calm. Wants to show child the mouth. Below, in the chaplain's smaller hand, refused. Warned warden. The stair fingers paused. Something inhaled through the keyhole, curious as a child smelling a cake. The quarter in my palm heated, then cooled, as if someone else had flipped it. You want a hymn? I said to the door. You want a mouth? My mother's voice answered from the sink, soft as a wet towel lifted from porcelain. "Sweetheart, pray with me." I didn't move. The organ gathered a second chord under the first, like two hands cupping a face. The vestry light, which shouldn't have had power, brightened, dimmed, brightened, in the rhythm of a breath. The ledgers slumped against each other. One fell open to a page I hadn't reached. A single line waited there, not in the chaplain's hand or my grandfather's. It was my own handwriting, nervous and neat, dated tonight. "I will finish what it started." A footstep landed on the stair above me, my cadence exactly, followed by a second, placed half a beat late, as if something learning to walk in my rhythm had just discovered where the floor ended. The vestry light died with a hiss, plunging me into a black that felt pressed against my face like a hand. I stood very still, coin sweating in my palm, listening to the stair above me echo footsteps that were my own but not mine, slower, heavier, each landing a beat behind the memory of my last step. "Who's there?" I whispered, though I knew better. Asking in black fog was an invitation. The answer wasn't a voice but the smell of burned wool, like a uniform roasted on the body that once wore it. The shadow reached the bottom step, and my flashlight, weak now, drained far too fast, lit a single print in the soot. Bare, human, toes splayed as if savoring the stone. The next step left no print at all. I edged toward the stair leading back up to the chapel, but the coin flared hot, urging me to freeze. My grandfather's voice returned in memory, "Heads tells the truth." I flipped it in the dark. The metal rang, spun, and I caught it without seeing. Heads. The truth was, if I went up, it would follow. I chose the corridor instead. The vestry door opened to a maintenance passage, low ceiling, pipes sweating overhead. The air quivered with a pulse too slow to be mechanical. The walls carried chalk scrawls, crude outlines of faces, each missing a mouth. Numbers etched above them climbed neatly, 1, 2, 3, stopping at 12. Then a smear of ash erased the rest. Halfway down, the hall bent sharply, ending in a steel door with a porthole of wired glass. Behind it, faint, unnatural light. The tag above the frame read Observation Level 2. Through the porthole I saw rows of cots, straps buckled across empty mattresses. At first empty, then, with the next flicker, occupied. Not fully. Not human. Shadows reclining like men, but the straps floated above them, as if holding shapes that pressed only against air. Their heads turned in unison toward the door. My door. The coin burned. I fumbled, dropped it. The sound was impossibly loud. Every shadow shape rose. I backed into the bend. The steel door clicked once. The handle began to turn. In panic I scooped the coin and yelled the first name that stabbed through my skull, Collier. The handle stopped. The shadows froze, head still cocked. Then a laugh, brittle as cracked glass, leaked from the vents above me. The laugh shaped itself into words, wrong mouth. The shadows dissolved into smoke. The straps on the cots writhed like snakes, unbuckling, snapping taut again as if begging for wrists. One strap lashed against the glass so hard the wired mesh bowed. I turned and sprinted down the passage. My own footsteps hammered back at me, too many, too fast, too wrong. They caught up in the echo, until it sounded like an army running beside me, laughing with my mother's borrowed voice. At the end of the corridor another stair climbed. The wall beside it bore a plaque, TO Control Tower. My key ring shivered as if eager. Behind me the strap struck the door again, a chorus of impacts. On the third strike, the glass cracked, fine lines spreading like lightning across the pane. I jammed a key into the stair door. The tumblers clicked, almost greedy. As I shoved it open, a voice hissed right into my left ear, no echo this time, no distance. "Bring your mouth." The door slammed shut behind me before I could turn. The stair to the control tower coiled narrow and steep, iron grating slick with condensation. My phone's light shook over rusted handrails, catching flashes of graffiti burned into the metal, "Don't look out." The words repeated every dozen steps, carved by different hands across decades, as if warning carried forward like a prayer. Halfway up, the counting started again. Not from the vents this time, from the tower itself, beating down the stairwell. 12, 11, 10, my breath snagged. It wasn't climbing numbers. It was counting down. I pushed faster. Each landing groaned like it carried more weight than just me. My legs ached. By the time the count reached 5, the stairwell trembled. Bolts sang in the steel. At 3, the tower door came into view, an oval hatch stamped with authorized access only. The final word hissed as though the metal itself had exhaled. At 2, I shoved the key in. The ring jingled once and then stilled, silent as if it, too, was listening for the last number. 1. The hatch swung inward before I turned it. The control tower was a hexagon of glass, cracked panes taped in excess, overlooking the blackened yard. Moonlight turned the prison blocks into gravestones. The desk in the center held a row of dead consoles, their screens blistered with soot. In the corner, a single chair faced the windows. It wasn't empty. A man sat there, uniform shredded by fire. His skin looked waxy, melted, but his eyes, wide, pale, still wet, rolled to meet mine. A name tag clung half-burned to his chest, Collier. Warden. My voice felt stolen, not mine. His mouth opened. Ash drifted out before words. You brought it. I stepped back. No. I brought the keys. He shook his head slowly, almost kindly. The name is the key. His voice cracked, splintered by smoke still lodged in his throat. You were always meant to open it. Blood remembers. The building knows what coin it's owed. I'm not, I started, but the chair groaned as he leaned forward. You think your grandfather burned this place to kill me? His lips pulled into a smile too wide for his face. No. He tried to burn the mouth shut. But fire doesn't seal. Fire feeds. The consoles flickered to life one by one. Screens showed camera feeds of the cell blocks, except the angles were wrong. They weren't empty. Every block held rows of inmates, standing perfectly still in their cells, heads tilted back, mouths open. No sound. Just the shape of waiting. Collier's eyes shone brighter, reflecting the monitors. They've been hungry a long time. It doesn't need their bodies anymore. Just mouths. He tilted his head toward me. Yours is next. On the screens, the prisoners' mouths began to move. Silent at first, then sinking into a whisper I couldn't hear with my ears but felt under my ribs. A single word, stretched thin, Hargrove. I stumbled backward. The coin in my pocket seared against my thigh like a brand. I yanked it out. The face gleamed under dead fluorescence, impossibly polished. Collier rose. His body cracked, ribs wheezing ash, but his stance was steady. Flip it, he rasped. Let it decide who swallows who. The screens around me surged white, static bleeding into the whisper. The countdown started again, from 12. I hesitated. Heads was truth. Tails was, what? The coin trembled between my fingers, as if eager to fall. And then the glass of the tower cracked, not from outside. From inside, pressed outward by something far larger than the building should hold. The tower glass shivered, a thin spiderweb racing across every pane until the prison yard beyond blurred like frost. I stood in the middle, the coin burning in my hand, the countdown pounding through the speakers, 12, 11, 10. Collier leaned on the chair, his voice breaking like dry wood. Flip it. You don't stop the count, you finish it. I raised the coin, but my hand shook so hard it slipped. It spun across the floor in a flash of silver, clinking between consoles before settling on its edge, impossibly balanced. "Not yours to drop," Collier croaked, but his voice wasn't his anymore. It layered with another, feminine, young, terribly familiar. My mother's voice. "Sweetheart, call it." The coin wobbled, refusing to fall. The countdown hit 5. Each number was heavier, pulling at the air. The glass bulged inward now, as if something outside was sucking for a breath through the cracks. I lunged for the coin. My fingertips brushed it. And the world froze. The countdown stopped mid-syllable. Collier froze mid-step. The static on the screen stretched into silence. A voice spoke from everywhere at once. Not Collier, not my mother, not my grandfather. It was deeper, the sound of an empty hall inhaling. Name. I swallowed, throat dry. Hargrove. The coin toppled. It landed heads. The screens blazed. Every prisoner's mouth snapped shut in unison, then opened wide again, not in whispers but in a scream I couldn't hear. Glass panes burst outward, showering the yard with shards. Collier laughed, and ash poured from the seams of his uniform. "It likes you." His burned lips cracked into something like joy. "It always liked you." The scream cut off. Silence fell so complete I thought I'd gone deaf. Then, slow, deliberate, came the sound I feared more than the silence. 1. The countdown had reset. Collier staggered closer, his ruined hands reaching. "It won't stop. Not until you give it the last number." "What last number?" My own voice cracked. "The only one higher than 12. His grin stretched too wide. "Your number." The coin rolled on its own back toward my feet, gleaming in the dark. It lay heads up, face staring at me. The engraved profile's lips moved. Just a twitch, but enough. Behind Collier, one of the screens blinked into a new feed, the infirmary. On a gurney lay a child, strapped, eyes wide and mouth sewn shut. My stomach dropped. The child was me, or had been me, years ago. The voice filled the tower again, shaking bolts loose from the walls. "Name. Bring your mouth." Collier's hands closed on my shoulders, blistered fingers digging in. His whisper rasped against my cheek, full of triumph. "Flip it again. But this time, it chooses which mouth stays shut." The countdown roared back from 12. And the coin in my hand twitched like a living thing, eager to fall. The countdown thundered in my skull, 12, 11, 10. Each number rattled bolts in the tower frame until dust sifted down like ash from a dying fire. I clutched the coin, slick with sweat, while Collier's burned fingers still pressed into my shoulders. "Flip it," he hissed, voice spitting cinders. "If you don't, it'll open every mouth in this place." The cracked glass behind him bulged, straining like lungs pressed against a ribcage of steel. I stepped back, coin raised, but the reflection in the window caught me off guard. It wasn't my face staring back. It was my mother's. Pale, sorrowful, mouth sewn shut with black thread. "No," I whispered. "That's not her." The reflection blinked, tears sliding down cheeks that weren't mine. Then her lips strained against the stitches. They ripped open one by one, threads snapping wetly. Her mouth gaped wider than it should, and her scream shattered into the room. Collier reeled as if struck. "It's learning her voice from you," he snarled. "From your memories. You gave it to him." The countdown hit 5. The glass buckled outward, finally cracking into a hole no larger than a coin. From it exhaled a breath that smelled like burned copper and wet stone. The prison blocks below stirred. On every screen, the still prisoners opened their mouths again, this time wider, their jaws stretching until bones should have split. The word they exhaled crawled through my bones, Hargrove. I dropped to my knees, coin tight in my fist. My grandfather's voice rose in memory, tired, broken. "If you get this, don't feed it a stranger's name. It has to be yours. That's how you keep it from spreading. What happens if I do? I muttered. The coin answered. It pulsed once in my palm like a second heartbeat. The countdown struck 3. Collier leaned close, ash teeth grinning. It wants you. Always you. Flip it, and you'll finish the sentence. I stared at the coin's face. Heads was truth. Tails was mystery. My thumb trembled. The glass behind me groaned, splitting wider, and from the crack pushed something pale and wet, like a tongue tasting the air. I flipped. The coin spun, clinking across the tower floor, flashing silver under the dead fluorescence. Collier lunged, desperate to catch it, but ash crumbled from his limbs and slowed him. The coin fell flat. Tails. The screens went black. The countdown stopped. The crack in the tower glass froze mid-breath, tongue retreating. For one heartbeat, silence swallowed everything. Then the reflection in the broken pane moved independently from me. My mother's face leaned forward, mouth open now, whispering in a voice only I could hear. Tails was mine. The tower door slammed shut behind me. Locks clicked one after another, sealing us in. Collier clawed at the handles with what fingers he had left, but the voice from the glass drowned him out. Your truth is heads. Your debt is tails. And tails belongs to me. The coin, still warm on the floor, slid on its own toward the crack in the glass. The tongue emerged again and swallowed it whole. The tower shuddered, not from collapse but from something enormous shifting awake beneath the prison. And the countdown started again, this time not from 12, but from 1. 1. 2. 3. The numbers weren't coming down from the tower speakers anymore. They were coming from inside my mouth. I clamped my hands over my mouth, but the numbers forced their way through my teeth like steam from a cracked pipe. 4, 5, 6. Each digit rattled my jaw until I tasted blood. Collier stumbled back, eyes blazing with ash-fed triumph. It's in you now. You called it. You flipped for it. His voice grew shrill, desperate. Finish the count before it finishes you. I shook my head violently, teeth clenched. No. The reflection in the broken tower glass disagreed. My mother's stitched mouth had burst fully open, lips split into raw grins. She spoke through me, her tone soft and pleading, layered over my own unwilling voice. 7. 8. The sound wasn't just inside the tower. From the prison yard below, thousands of mouths answered, voices in harmony. 9. I staggered to the consoles, slamming switches, pulling wires, anything to kill the sound. Sparks flew but the feeds blinked back, showing not cells anymore but mirrors, mirrors of me, sitting in every block, counting with mouths too wide. Collier clawed at my arm. His burned grip left smears of ash. Don't you see? It was never the prisoners. Never the guards. It was you. It waited for the bloodline, for the mouth that matched. The numbers forced out of me, 10. I collapsed to my knees. The coin was gone, but I felt its weight behind my tongue. The last flip hadn't ended, it had lodged inside me. The reflection stepped out of the glass. Not my mother anymore, me. A second me, lips raw, eyes hollow, whispering, 11. The twin knelt across from me, its breath the stench of smoldering cloth. Say it, it coaxed, voice gentle, promising release. Say 12, and it will be done. Collier backed toward the hatch, fear flooding his melted features for the first time. Don't listen. It doesn't end at 12. It never ends. The double smiled. That's why your grandfather failed. He burned stone and steel, but not the tongue that carried the number. You inherited that tongue. I pressed my lips shut, trembling. My chest swelled with the weight of a word too heavy to hold. The prison itself leaned in. Every block groaned. Every vent exhaled heat. The chapel organ above groaned a low note, harmonizing with the count. The twins' lips hovered inches from mine. 12. I screamed, not the number, just a scream, raw and ragged. It broke the rhythm, made the prison hesitate. The countdown faltered. For the first time, silence slashed through the air. Collier took the moment to lunge at my double, wrapping his arms around its throat. They hit the floor together, ash and shadow wrestling like fire and smoke. The glass walls of the tower bulged, hungry to watch. I crawled for the hatch. It wouldn't turn. Keys jingled uselessly in my hand. Behind me, Collier shrieked. The double bent his face backward with impossible hands, forcing his jaw open. Ash poured from him like sand through an hourglass. His scream fractured into digits, 11. 11. 11. The twin looked at me, Collier's dust spilling down its front. It won't matter who fights. The number ends with you. And then, with Collier gone, it reached for my throat, its grip gentle, almost loving, while the entire prison whispered the word I had been holding back. 12. The hatch flung itself open. And something waited on the stairs below, counting backward. The stairwell beyond the hatch was black, but the numbers echoed upward, rolling against the walls like boots on stone. 12, 11, 10, the voice wasn't mine this time. It wasn't Collier's either. It was older, cracked, but sharp with command. I froze halfway through the doorway. That voice, I'd heard it on old home movies, in cassette hiss, even once in a drunken Christmas story. My grandfather. Granddad? My whisper barely reached the railing. The count went on. 9, 8. The tower behind me groaned, glass bending outward as the twin rose again. It no longer needed Collier. Ash clung to its shoulders like a cloak. If you go down, it said in my voice, you'll hear the last number. I fled down the stair. Each landing shuddered with the count, the numbers punching into me with the force of hammers. 7. 6. At the bottom, the stairs spilled into the administrative wing. The offices had been gutted by fire, but one door stood intact, Warden's office. The handle was blistered black. Keys rattled in my hand, but the door swung open before I touched it. Inside, the air felt preserved, sealed like a jar. Papers lay crisp on the desk. A nameplate gleamed faintly, Warden A. Collier. But in the chair sat a figure in fireman's gear, helmet at his feet, coat charred through. My grandfather. He looked up, face carved in shadow. His eyes met mine, wild but weary. You shouldn't have come. I staggered back. You're dead. Not enough, he said, voice breaking. I tried to burn it shut. But mouths don't stay shut. They open in new throats. He leaned forward. Yours. I told them not to let you near. I shook my head. You left the deed. You gave me the keys. His fists slammed the desk. Dust leapt. I left them so no one else would. You were supposed to throw them in the river. The countdown whispered in the vents. 5. He winced. It's almost done. What happens at 12? I demanded. Granddad's eyes softened. It eats the speaker. And then it waits for the next mouth. It's how this place feeds. The reflection twin appeared in the window behind his desk. It smiled at me through the glass. He's lying. It doesn't end with you. It ends with him. Finish the count, and it'll leave you. Don't, Granddad growled. It wants the family blood. That's why it waited through decades. It doesn't want Collier. It doesn't want the prisoners. It wants Hargrove. The twins' lips moved silently, mimicking mine. The vents hissed. 4. My grandfather pulled something from his coat pocket and slid it across the desk. A coin, blackened, edges warped by fire. The first coin. I flipped it when I lit the match. It pulsed faintly in the ash of his palm. Flip again, the twin urged. Its voice poured through the glass like honey. See who finishes the sentence. I reached for the coin. The metal scalded my fingers, heavier than it should have been, like it carried numbers pressed deep inside. The vents whispered, 3. My grandfather's hand caught mine. His grip was shaking, urgent. If you flip, you'll give it the last 2. Don't. Break the count. Starve it. The glass behind him bulged. My double leaned out, grinning wide, and whispered the penultimate digit with me. 2. The office lights blew out, leaving only the glow of the coin between our hands. The office was dark, save for the faint glow of the scorched coin in my palm. My grandfather's grip trembled around mine, his skin cracked and flaking soot, as though holding the coin was burning him from the inside. The vents whispered the final digit, 1. My throat swelled, desperate to echo it. My jaw clenched until my teeth ached, but the word pulsed under my tongue like a living worm. Don't say it, Granddad rasped. His face was gray, eyes wet with something more than smoke. Once you speak it, it isn't yours anymore. It'll count through you. The reflection in the office glass sneered, my own face bent wrong, lips split wide. Say it, it purred. Say 1, and be free. The glow of the coin brightened, casting shadows like ribs across the walls. I lifted it to eye level. Head stared back, charred but still legible. My grandfather's words echoed from years past, heads tells the truth. What's the truth? I whispered. That you were always meant for this, the twin hissed. Granddad's hand tightened. No. The truth is, you don't owe it a number. You owe it silence. The vents hissed again, longer this time. 1. I buckled to my knees. The coin rolled free, skittering across the desk. My reflection in the window leaned closer, breath fogging the glass from inside. Its voice crawled under my skin. It's already in you. If you stop now, you'll rot with it chewing through your skull. Give it the last number, and it will leave you hollow. Peaceful. Peaceful. My bones ached for it. The pressure in my chest screamed for release. My lips trembled. Oh. Granddad slapped his hand over my mouth. His burned palm seared my skin. No. The twins' grin widened. You can't hold it forever, old man. Let him speak. The office walls groaned. Paint blistered and peeled back to brick, the same tally marks etched in soot beneath, endless sequences of numbers, each ending with a blackened mouth scratched into stone. Granddad pulled me close, forehead pressed to mine. His voice broke into a whisper. If you're my blood, then you have my choice too. Don't finish it. Break it. The coin pulsed one last time, then split with a sharp crack. Ash poured out, filling the room in a choking cloud. Through the haze, my reflection stepped fully out of the glass. It was me, but hollow-eyed, jaw unhinged, mouth yawning wide to swallow the last number. I shoved my grandfather aside and lunged at it. My fists closed around its throat. If you want a mouth, my words were ragged, torn from my lungs. Then take mine. I clamped my own teeth together so hard blood spilled. The number clawed to escape, but I gave it no sound. My body shook. My reflection thrashed, then shrieked silently, as if my refusal starved it. The walls screamed with me. The vents choked. The countdown stuttered, then died. For a breathless moment, there was nothing. No voices. No numbers. Just silence. Granddad's hand touched my shoulder. You did it. But when I looked up, the office was empty. My grandfather had vanished. Only soot remained where he'd stood. And in the cracked glass, the reflection was gone, except for one faint phrase scrawled in condensation. You silenced one mouth. How many more? The silence in the warden's office felt heavy, not like peace but like a lid forced onto boiling water. My chest heaved, every breath tasting of ash and copper. I stared at the window where the reflection had written its last taunt, you silenced one mouth. How many more? The words were already fading, dripping down the glass like sweat. I staggered to my feet. The scorched coin lay cracked on the desk, glowing faintly along its split edge. I reached for it, but the metal hissed and seared my fingertips, branding a mark that pulsed with each beat of my heart. Somewhere below, the prison groaned alive again. Steel clanged in rhythm. Doors opened and shut without hands. My skin prickled with the feeling that silence wasn't victory, it was appetite. I forced myself into the hall. The administrative wing was blackened ruin, desks collapsed, ceilings sagging. Yet as I moved, the silence followed me. Every shoe scuff, every breath, every heartbeat was swallowed instantly. My body made sound, but the air ate it. The deeper I walked, the heavier it grew. The silence wasn't absence, it was pressure. It thickened the air until I could feel it pressing against my ears, my throat. It wanted something. On the wall outside the records office, a burned sign clung half-fused, inmate files. The door creaked open as if invited. I stepped inside. Cabinets stood intact, their drawers warped but closed. The silence leaned closer, eager. I yanked one drawer open. Inside lay stacks of folders, every name legible despite the fire, prisoners, guards, chaplains. Each stamped with dates of intake and release, or death. One folder sat on top, untouched by soot. Its tab bore my surname, Hargrove. My hands shook as I pulled it free. Inside, pages of typed reports. My grandfather's notes, letters to the state, even transcripts of sessions with inmate number 313. But at the back, a single page waited blank except for one line typed neatly in the center. Sentence not complete. Awaiting continuation. My mouth went dry. The silence crept closer, curling under the desk, around my legs, over my shoulders. It whispered without sound, pressing words directly into my skull, finish it. Finish the sentence. I dropped the folder, but the papers lifted anyway, flaring out like wings. Words scrambled across them, arranging into numbers, then into my name. Hargrove filled every page, stamped, repeated, endless. No, I rasped, though my voice sounded underwater. No more. The cracked coin in my pocket pulsed like a second heart. Against my will, my lips parted, tongue shaping the number I hadn't spoken before. The silence thrilled at the motion, shoving against my teeth, desperate to escape. I clamped my jaw shut and bolted. The papers swarmed into the air like locusts, filling the hall with my name, each one flapping as if breathing. I tore through them, stumbled into the stairwell, and slammed the door. In the dark, silence pressed harder. Then, footsteps. My own rhythm, climbing from below, echoing up the stair. Only this time, they didn't pause. They were running. I backed up the stairs toward the chapel landing, heart hammering, coin searing my leg through my pocket. At the top, the organ began to play. Not a hymn, just one note, low and endless, vibrating the marrow of my bones. And the silence finally broke. Not with numbers. With a single word breathed by hundreds of stolen mouths at once. Mouth. The chapel doors groaned open before I touched them. Cold light leaked through the crack, pale as moonlight but sour, like breath held too long underground. I stepped inside, coin burning against my thigh. The pews were filled. Not with people, at least, not fully. Shadows sat where bodies should be, faces turned toward the altar. Each head tilted back, each mouth stretched wide. They sang one word, over and over, weaving it into a hymn. Mouth. 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 The organ swelled behind them without hands on the keys. Pipes shook as if something enormous inhaled through them. My stomach turned with the vibration, every note sinking deep into my chest. I forced myself down the aisle. The shadows didn't move except to breathe the word in unison. As I passed, some turned their heads to follow me. Their mouths were too large, teeth blackened stumps, tongues like paper curling in heat. At the altar, the register still lay open where I'd left it. Pages fluttered in a wind that came from nowhere, names bleeding across them until only one word filled the lines: Hargrove. The silence I'd carried from the office pushed at me here, pressing harder with every step, but it wasn't winning. The hymn was stronger, a chorus drowning out silence with endless mouths. The twin stood behind the altar now, grinning wide, my face stretched wrong. They waited for the hymn, it said in my voice. The silence was only the verse. You brought the chorus. I slammed my fists on the lectern. Why me? Its eyes gleamed like wet ash. Because your name fits. Because your grandfather lit the fire but left the ember. Because every coin falls eventually. The shadows in the pews turned together, mouths gaping. The word dragged from them, rising into the rafters: mouth. Mouth. The organ changed pitch, climbing into a scale. Each step of the scale was a number. The hymn had become a countdown again. Stop! I shouted, but my voice broke into the chant, my throat echoing them before I could close my lips. The twin laughed, stepping closer. There's only one way to silence a mouth. You have to fill it. I fumbled for the coin. Its crack had widened, glowing like a seam. I clutched it so tight my palm bled, red drops sizzling on the metal. The hymn swelled. The numbers rose. 8. 9. 10. Shadows leaned forward in the pews, their mouths stretching so wide their faces split into seams of black. The organ's pipes bulged like throats, rattling dust from the rafters. Finish it, the twin whispered. Its mouth split further than mine ever could, stretching into a black cavern. Feed it. Or it will never stop. The hymn struck 11. I pressed the coin against my teeth. The metal seared my tongue, filled my mouth with ash. My body convulsed as if swallowing fire. The twin mirrored me, stuffing its blackened hand down its throat, grinning even as blood trickled. The congregation of shadows leaned closer, ready for the final word. The organ boomed 12 with such force the windows shattered, raining glass across the chapel floor. And every mouth, mine included, opened to scream. The chapel shook with the scream. Not just sound, heat. The windows blew outward, and the night poured in as fire burst through the organ pipes. Flames roared like voices, each tongue of fire a syllable in the hymn. Shadows in the pews ignited one by one, not burning away but burning into shape, bodies of ash, faces still split wide, mouths glowing from within. They stood, moving in unison, their hymn now a chant of fire and breath. I staggered back against the lectern, coin clenched between my teeth. My jaw ached from keeping it there, but I knew if I spat it out, the fire would choose my throat as its new altar. The twin stepped out from behind the altar, its face blistering, skin peeling back to reveal nothing but flame beneath. It grinned at me with my own burning mouth. This is the end of the sentence, it said, words crackling like kindling. Not silence. Not song. Fire. My grandfather's voice rose faintly inside my skull, hoarse but defiant. I thought the fire would starve it. But it only made more of it to breathe. The twin reached for me. Its hand was a torch, and when it touched my chest, heat poured through my ribs. I dropped to my knees, the coin falling free at last. It hit the floor and rang once, impossibly loud. The congregation froze. Every mouth shut. The coin rolled in a perfect circle, glowing brighter with every turn, until the crack along its surface split wide. From inside came not flame but smoke, thick, black, suffocating. The twin hissed. No. The smoke spilled upward, rushing into the rafters, choking the firelight. Shadows clawed at their throats, gagging. The organ pipes shrieked as smoke forced itself down their throats instead of fire. The hymn faltered. I crawled forward, snatched the coin again. Its halves dangled by a thread of molten metal. For a moment I thought it would fall apart completely. The twin lunged, but the smoke wrapped it, swallowing its fire, dimming its glow. It screamed my name, the sound bending into 100 voices at once. Hargrove. Hargrove. Mouth. Mouth. I shoved the cracked coin between its teeth. The halves split, embedding into its flaming skull like iron jaws. The scream cut off. The twin staggered, hands clawing at its face, until the smoke consumed it whole. The congregation erupted in chaos. Mouths snapped shut, then burst open again, desperate for air they couldn't steal. Their chant broke into sobs, coughs, silence. One by one, they collapsed into piles of ash that blew away with the smoke. The chapel groaned. Flames dimmed. The organ wheezed a final note and fell quiet. For the first time since I'd stepped into black fog, silence felt real, not pressure, not appetite, just stillness. I stood trembling, coin shards cooling in my palm. My mouth bled from where I'd bitten down too hard, but the weight inside me, the numbers, the voice, was gone. Or so I thought. From somewhere deep below, maybe in the boilers, maybe under the foundation itself, came a low, deliberate sound. 1. Not loud. Not urgent. Just patient. The silence wasn't victory. It was a pause. I staggered out of the chapel, smoke clinging to my clothes, ash in my hair. The halls of black fog were silent, real silence now, not the crushing, hungry kind. Doors stood open. Cells gaped empty. For the first time, the prison felt abandoned. But that single sound kept following me, rolling up from the depths like a pebble dropping into a well. 1. Always 1. I descended toward the intake corridor where I'd first stepped inside. The air was cooler there, almost damp, as if the fire and smoke had never touched it. The Polaroid of my grandfather was still pinned to the board, only now the photo had changed. He no longer stood in fireman's gear. He was seated in the chapel pew, head tilted back, mouth wide open. I ripped the picture down, but the wall behind it was warm, pulsing faintly as if the stone itself had veins. The silence tried to reassure me, no voices in the vents, no numbers in the hymn, but my heartbeat knew better. The prison wasn't dead. It was waiting. At the gate, the realtor's car was gone. The gravel lot was empty under a pale dawn sky. I unlocked the chain and stepped outside, coin shards still in my pocket. The air was clean, cold, and for a moment I thought I'd left it all behind. Then I coughed. Just a cough, dry from smoke. But the sound echoed too long. It bounced back from the prison walls, shaped into something else. 2. My blood froze. I stumbled to the car I'd left by the roadside. The engine turned over, tires grinding gravel. I forced myself not to look back at the prison. If I did, I knew I'd see mouths in every shattered window. Miles away, at the first gas station, I ran into the restroom to wash my face. The mirror above the sink was cracked, spotted. My reflection looked back, tired, pale, eyes haunted. And then its lips moved without me. 3. I slammed the mirror with my fist, glass shattering into the sink. My reflection lingered for a moment in every shard, mouths moving, each at a different number. Back in the car, my phone buzzed for the first time since I entered black fog. One new voicemail, time-stamped at midnight, the hour the coin split. It was my grandfather's voice. "Kid," he rasped, "if you're hearing this, I didn't finish it. And neither did you. It doesn't end at 12. It just starts over in a new mouth. That's the sentence. That's the prison. The message cut with a click, leaving only static that almost, but not quite, formed a number. I drove for hours, but no distance changed the truth. Every cough, every muttered word, every whisper in my sleep wanted to bend into the rhythm. The sentence hadn't died in black fog. It had followed me. Tonight, as I write this, I hear it again, soft, patient, crawling up from my own throat. 4. I don't know how long I can hold it in before the count finishes. Maybe that's why my grandfather set the fire. Maybe that's why I'll do the same. If you're reading this, if you found my words, don't come looking for black fog. Don't come looking for me. Because sooner or later, the count will reach you. And then you'll open your mouth too.